In Jungian psychology, the mother archetype is a powerful universal symbol representing qualities like nurturing, protection, and origin. When a child's early experience with their mother, or primary caregiver, is fraught with unmet needs or trauma, the archetype can become internalized as a mother complex. In simple terms, this means the child carries an unconscious emotional imprint of the mother figure into adulthood. Carl Jung noted that the mother archetype forms the foundation of a mother complex. If the mother was overanxious, cold, or abusive, the child's psyche may split. Part of the mother image becomes an alien shadow in the mind, often surfacing in disturbing fantasies or neuroses. In short, our minds encode an inner mother based on early experiences, for better or worse. Crucially, a mother complex is not just about one's actual mother. It's about the inner image of mother that lives in the psyche long after childhood. That inner image can continue to influence us even when our real mother is absent or has changed. Psychologists describe the mother complex as a personified affect fueled by an archetypal core. In other words, a potent emotional pattern that often originated in our relationship with a mother figure. This complex is universal to some degree. Everyone has a mother or caregiver. But when the relationship was painful or inadequate, the complex tends to take on a negative, constraining form, sometimes called the negative mother complex. The mother archetype's shadow in adult life. When someone carries an unresolved or negative mother complex, it can feel like an emotional prison with invisible bars, as one might describe it. Because the inner mother figure is not integrated, it becomes a shadow cast over one's life. The consequences often show up in subtle but pervasive ways. For example, an individual with a wounded mother complex may struggle with self-worth, constantly seek approval, or fear being authentic. They might find that the same conflicts repeat in their relationships, perhaps feeling needy, fearing abandonment, or gravitating toward partners who echo the dynamics they had with their mother. Indeed, psychologists observe that a negative mother complex shows up in relationships with others and in the relationship with oneself. This means the way we treat ourselves, our self-talk, self-care, and limits, and the way we relate to friends, lovers, or authority figures can all be colored by that internal mother shadow. Common patterns include difficulty setting boundaries, stemming from a childhood where boundaries were disrespected, or an inability to tolerate rejection, because the inner child still craves unconditional acceptance. A person might unconsciously project the mother archetype onto others, for instance, expecting a friend, spouse, or boss to save or nurture them in the way they wish their mother had. Conversely, they may overreact to criticism or authority, hearing the unspoken judgment of the internalized mother's voice, even when it isn't really there. In Jungian terms, the injured inner mother can become a negative inner voice that judges you without speaking, an internal critic that echoes the attitudes of one's actual mother, especially if she was critical or unloving. Over time, one may realize that the harsh voice in one's head is not truly one's own. It is the internalized voice of the parent. Studies of the inner critic have noted that how we were spoken to as children by our primary caregiver often becomes the tone of how we talk to ourselves as adults. If a mother was regularly critical or shaming, that same tone is likely to show up automatically in our inner monologue as self-criticism and self-doubt. We might hardly notice this constant inner negativity because it feels so familiar. It's the psychological atmosphere we grew up in. In this way, a painful mother complex can keep a person emotionally stuck, still living in the shadow of an old wound. Invisible loyalties, the secret trap of self-sabotage. One especially subtle trap that arises from an unresolved mother complex is what family therapists call invisible loyalties. This concept, from contextual family therapy, even Bosormenyi-Nagy, describes unconscious family contracts where children remain loyal to their parents' pain or limitations in hidden ways. In the context of the mother complex, an adult child may harbor a deep, wordless belief that to surpass their mother is to betray her. In other words, if your life becomes happier or healthier than your mother's was, a part of you might feel disloyal or unworthy. This hidden loyalty can compel you to hold yourself back without even realizing it. For example, common secret beliefs shaped by invisible loyalty include: if I have an easy or happy life, it means my mother's struggles were in vain. I must put my parents' needs first, or else I'm selfish. My family has always struggled financially. If I become successful or wealthy, I'll be abandoning them. All the women in my family endured unhappy relationships. Who am I to expect something better? Such beliefs operate beneath conscious awareness and feel deeply real, even if, rationally, we know they don't make sense. They often lead to self-sabotage and stagnation. We might downplay our achievements, find ways to fail at the last minute, or unconsciously choose partners and situations that repeat familiar family patterns. For instance, someone who feels an invisible loyalty to a mother who suffered in relationships may recreate similar suffering in their own love life, as if proving, "See, I struggled too, just like you did." Psychologists explain this not as mere coincidence or bad luck, but as an unconscious repetition of a familiar dynamic, a way to remain loyal to the family script. Why would we do this to ourselves? From a psychological standpoint, belonging and loyalty can feel more important than individual success. A child, or even an adult, may feel that breaking out of the family's cycles, becoming happier, healthier, or more prosperous than one's mother, would be a betrayal of her sacrifice or suffering. There is a misguided sense of love behind this. I'll stay unhappy too, so that you, mother, don't have to be alone in pain. However, this loyalty only perpetuates pain. It doesn't actually help the parent. Your pain doesn't heal your mother's pain, and your stagnation won't save her. On the contrary, by continuing the cycle of suffering, you are inadvertently paying homage to the very trauma you wish to overcome. Breaking free from this unconscious pact can be frightening. It can evoke guilt or anxiety, as if one were abandoning the family lineage. But here lies a crucial truth. The real betrayal is not in leaving your mother's pain behind. The real betrayal is in continuously reliving it. True loyalty to your life involves using the life and opportunities you have to rise above old patterns. In fact, some therapists argue that honoring our parents and ancestors ultimately means surpassing their limitations, not out of ego or contempt, but as an act of evolutionary growth, turning the sacrifices of previous generations into something positive and new. Breaking these invisible loyalties can feel like stepping into a void, because for the first time you are separating your identity from your mother's. That void is actually freedom, a space in which you get to decide who you are, independent of the past. It helps to remember that the pull of invisible family loyalty is strong in many people. It's even observed across generations through phenomena like intergenerational trauma. Research has shown that psychological trauma and stress can be passed down, not only through learned behavior, but even through biological changes. For example, studies of children of trauma survivors show inherited stress responses. This might explain why these patterns feel so deep-rooted. In a sense, they are wired into us. Yet, difficult as it is possible to break the cycle. It starts with bringing those hidden beliefs into consciousness and deciding to release them. Breaking the cycle, from blame to responsibility. Healing begins when blame ends. As long as we keep focusing outward, for example, only blaming our mother for everything wrong in our lives, we remain stuck in a losing battle. Certainly, acknowledging a parent's harmful actions or mistakes is important, and setting appropriate boundaries is part of healing. But there is a critical turning point when you realize that, however unfair it was, the responsibility to heal now rests with you. No one is coming to redo your childhood or magically fix your past. Continuing to wait for an apology, or for your mother to finally give you the validation you craved, keeps you locked in the past. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, as Jung famously observed. In other words, if you don't excavate and own these hidden wounds, you'll continue to act them out over and over, as if life is happening to you. Shifting from blame to responsibility is hard. It can feel devastating to let go of the old hope that one day your mother will become the ideal parent you longed for. Many people go through a stage of grief when they truly confront this reality. Grief for the childhood they never had. Grief for the loss of an illusion. Healing isn't a tidy, linear process. It can be emotionally turbulent. You might find old memories and feelings resurfacing, and it's normal to feel anger, sadness, or fear in waves. Psychological healing is often described as a descent before the ascent. One must face the demons of the past, the unmet needs, the anger, the sorrow, in order to move through them. This is sometimes called shadow work, which means bringing to light the parts of our psyche that we have repressed or denied. It requires brutal honesty, as well as compassion for oneself in the process. A crucial part of breaking the cycle is also seeing your mother, or past caregiver, in a more realistic light. As long as we see her as an almost mythical figure, either a terrible villain or a flawless saint, we are not relating to the reality of who she is. The truth is, mothers are human beings. Many times a mother who caused harm was herself wounded or limited by her circumstances. This doesn't excuse hurtful behavior, but it puts it into context. Recognizing that she did what she could with what she had can loosen the grip of rage or idealization. It allows an adult child to internalize that it wasn't about me being unlovable, it was about her own pain or ignorance. Studies on intergenerational patterns often find that parents repeat what they learned from their parents unless they've done conscious work to change. For example, a mother who constantly criticized you likely had her own inner critic, possibly inherited from her mother. Understanding this can create a bit of empathy or at least a sense of impersonal perspective. The issue is part of a legacy of hurt, not a unique defect in you or a deliberate plot by her. By viewing your mother as neither a goddess nor a monster, but as a flawed human, you reclaim power. She no longer looms as an all-powerful force in your psyche. You can mourn the real losses. Perhaps she wasn't able to love you the way you needed, and at the same time affirm that you are now an adult, free to seek your own path. As one Jungian psychologist put it, healing a negative mother complex ultimately involves finding the mother within. That is, rather than continuously seeking the missing nurturance from an external source, one learns to become their own source of comfort and validation. Reparenting your inner child, becoming your own mother. Reparenting is the process of giving yourself the care and emotional support that you missed in childhood. In therapeutic terms, reparenting involves nurturing one's inner child through self-compassion and addressing unmet emotional needs from childhood. The basic idea is simple. Inside each of us, there is still an inner child, the young self, who felt hurt, scared, or unloved. Healing comes from listening to that inner child now, acknowledging their feelings and providing what was lacking. In practice, reparenting means actively choosing to treat yourself with the kindness, protection, and guidance that you deserved as a child, even if you didn't receive it then. This can empower you to heal past wounds and build emotional resilience in adulthood. One reason reparenting is so important is that many people try to fill their childhood voids through external relationships. For example, hoping a romantic partner will give them the unconditional love or understanding their mother didn't. Unfortunately, this strategy often leads to disappointment or codependent relationships. External comfort can only go so far. Others may support us, but they cannot rewrite our childhood. As one psychologist noted, when old attachment wounds are still raw, we may seek reassurance and comfort in external sources. But when those others inevitably fall short of our idealized expectations, the old pain resurfaces and we find ourselves suffering again. The cycle only truly breaks when we turn inward and become the caregiver our younger self needed. By leaning into what it was genuinely like for us as a child and responding with empathy, we start to rewrite the script. Instead of the world forever mirroring our unmet needs, we begin to meet them. Practically, how does one reparent themselves? It helps to imagine what a truly loving, wise parent would do, and then do those things for yourself. Here are a few evidence-based strategies for self-reparenting and self-care. Practice self-compassionate self-talk. Pay attention to your inner dialogue, especially in moments of failure or pain. If you catch a harsh, critical voice, perhaps echoing things your mother once said, pause and intentionally speak to yourself as you would to a beloved child or friend. Offer reassurance and kindness. This cultivates a new, positive inner voice. Engaging in such reparenting practices cultivates self-compassion and self-acceptance. By offering yourself the nurturing care and understanding you needed as a child, you learn to treat yourself with kindness, which builds self-worth. Set healthy boundaries and say no when needed. Children who grow up with unhealthy dynamics often learn to abandon their own boundaries or needs. For example, always pleasing others or accepting mistreatment. Reparenting yourself means giving yourself permission to have limits. It's okay to protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being. Learning to say no to others when appropriate is really saying yes to your own needs, just as a good parent would protect their child's well-being. Attend to basic self-care. Eat, rest, comfort yourself. A loving mother ensures the child eats well, rests when tired, and gets comfort when upset. You can do the same for you. Rather than pushing yourself to exhaustion or ignoring your pain, start listening to your body and emotions. If you're exhausted, allow rest without guilt. If you're sad or hurt, give yourself a safe space to cry or express it without judgment. These small acts signal to your inner child, I am here for you now. Indeed, something as simple as granting yourself rest when you're tired, instead of driving yourself harder, is a form of reparenting. It's meeting a basic need with compassion instead of criticism. Use positive affirmations and encouragement. Many people with a mother wound have internalized the belief, I am not good enough. To counter this, deliberately tell yourself encouraging truths. For example, remind yourself, I am worthy of love. My feelings and needs matter. Writing these down or saying them in the mirror can feel awkward at first, but over time it builds a new belief system. In therapy, clients are often given exercises like writing a letter from their adult self to their inner child, full of validation and love. This can be a powerful tool to heal the emotional voids. Reward and soothe yourself in healthy ways. Part of good parenting is celebrating a child's efforts and soothing their distress. You can integrate this by acknowledging your own accomplishments, even small ones, and treating yourself to things that make you happy. Also, develop healthy soothing techniques for stress, like taking a warm bath, walking in nature, or practicing mindfulness. This reinforces an internal message that your well-being matters. Reparenting is not a one-time event, but an ongoing inner relationship you cultivate. Over time, by consistently responding to yourself with care, you essentially find the mother within. You establish an inner nurturing figure that you can rely on. This internal mother is the wise, compassionate part of you that acts in your best interest. As Jungian analysts describe, by responding to the turmoil of the mother complex, one can embrace the task of finding the mother within. In other words, through the struggle of healing, you awaken your own capacity to parent yourself. Embracing self-compassion and emotional freedom. As you reparent yourself and break the old patterns, something profound begins to shift. You develop true self-compassion. This is not a superficial feel-good idea, but a medicine for deep emotional wounds. Self-compassion means treating yourself with the same empathy, forgiveness, and gentleness that a loving parent would show their child. Research indicates that cultivating self-compassion can dramatically improve emotional well-being. For instance, by consistently offering yourself understanding instead of judgment, you build a deeper sense of self-worth and self-love. Over time, the negative inner mother, that internal critical voice, starts to lose its grip. You come to recognize it when it speaks. You're not enough. You don't deserve to be happy, or other echoes of the past. And you can respond, I know where this voice comes from, but it isn't the truth of who I am. In fact, confronting that inner critic is a key step. Psychologists note that many of us hang on to this negative self-talk as an unconscious way of feeling mothered when we had a critical mother. It feels familiar, oddly safe to punish ourselves in the same way, until we shine a light on it. By making this process conscious, we effectively withdraw the fuel from the inner critic. As one author put it, this behavior remains unconscious until we take the time to make it conscious. Once it's conscious, we can change it. As your relationship with yourself improves, you'll likely notice other changes. One is an increased capacity to form healthy, balanced relationships with others. Instead of unconsciously seeking a mother in partners or friends, you come into relationships as a more secure individual. When you no longer abandon yourself, you won't tolerate others abandoning or mistreating you either. In fact, learning self-compassion and self-care tends to positively impact relationships. By fostering self-awareness and compassion, people cultivate healthier and more fulfilling connections with those around them. Another change is a sense of freedom and authenticity. The invisible chains of guilt or shame that kept you small begin to fall away. You may find the courage to pursue opportunities that previously scared you, to assert your true opinions and to live in a way that aligns with your own values, rather than out of fear of displeasing an internalized parent figure. Psychologically, this is a form of individuation, becoming fully yourself. It's what Jung might call finally stepping out of the fate of the unconscious pattern into the choice of a conscious life. This journey is often described as a silent revolution within. There is no external fanfare when one heals an old childhood wound, but the inner transformation is life-altering. Instead of life being a mere echo of the past, it becomes an open horizon. Importantly, healing the mother complex doesn't mean you erase all scars or never feel pain again. It means that for the first time, you relate to your wounds consciously. As one writer noted, wounds themselves aren't the main problem. The problem is when we live at their mercy, constantly running from them. By facing and tending to our wounds, we integrate them into who we are, and they no longer control us. In practical terms, this might mean you still feel pangs of that old sadness or longing at times, but now you recognize it and can soothe it, rather than it engulfing you or secretly driving your behavior. Living beyond the pattern. To come out on the other side of this healing process is to experience what we might call emotional maturity in its truest form. This isn't the stiff upper lip of forced maturity or pretending everything is fine. Rather, it's a maturity born from understanding and compassion. You become, in a sense, the parent to your own inner child, and thus you no longer remain a child of your past. You can honor the past for the lessons it taught, without being imprisoned by it. One of the most beautiful outcomes of breaking a painful mother complex is that it not only frees you, but it reverberates to future generations. If you have children, or plan to, the work you do now to heal yourself is the true gift you pass down. Instead of inheriting the same unresolved patterns, your children inherit a healthier, more present parent. Psychological patterns, not just genes or heirlooms, are a form of inheritance in families. By doing this inner work, you effectively close a cycle of intergenerational pain and start a new, healthier script. Even if you don't have children, you'll radiate change in your relationships and communities, breaking the contagion of trauma by not unconsciously spreading it further. In the end, freeing yourself from the shadow of the mother archetype is not an act of rejection or disloyalty. It is an act of growth and genuine love. It's often said that the greatest tribute you can give to those who came before you is not to repeat their suffering, but to learn from it and create a better life. You honor the life you were given by fully living it in your own authentic way. By choosing to heal, you implicitly say, "Mom and ancestors, I carry forward not the pain, but the strength and wisdom from what happened. I evolve this family story." In doing so, you transform the legacy. Healing the mother complex is a courageous journey of turning inward, breaking invisible chains and nurturing the self like never before. It requires us to face uncomfortable truths, that some of our deepest pain is an inner residue from the past, and that we ourselves now have the responsibility and power to mend it. It asks us to relinquish the role of victim waiting to be saved, and to become the hero, or good parent, of our own story. This journey is both reflective and emotional, delving into long-buried feelings, and it centers on the mother archetype, not as an external figure to battle or idolize, but as an inner force to be understood and healed. Through awareness, grieving, and self-compassionate action, one can break the pattern that has perhaps persisted for generations. The result is an emerging sense of wholeness and freedom, emotional freedom to be who you truly are, unencumbered by an unconscious script from childhood. As you integrate this healing, you might notice a new quiet inside, a silence where there used to be constant self-criticism or longing. In that quiet space is personal power and peace. Finally, remember that this process is indeed a silent revolution. There may be no outward spectacle as you choose yourself, set a boundary, or speak kindly to your reflection in the mirror. But over time, these humble acts of self-love amount to a profound transformation. When self-love is born from healed pain, it stops being a trend and becomes a silent revolution, as one author put it. By ending the cycle of what broke you, you set a new course for your life, one defined not by lack, but by love. And that truly is the beginning of everything. And if you made it this far, don't just watch, become part of this journey. Subscribe to Neuromystique if you're ready to confront the unconscious, to heal what others fear to name, and to rewrite the story from within. Because here, we don't follow the light. We walk through the shadow to find it. Hit the bell, stay with the questions, and never forget, your healing begins when you stop waiting for someone else to save you. Until next time.